Welcome back to Witches Ritual, everyone. Thank you so much for being patient with me. I know I've been a little MIA in the last few weeks, but I'm coming back stronger and harder. This one is a very special episode for me, not just because it's going into the autumn season and all of the spooky vibes that we have coming for us, but the energy just feels different, and it's definitely my favorite time of year. So today my special guest is Sanhre, and he is the host of the Order of Chaos podcast. So I'll let him introduce himself a little bit more, and we'll get started into this episode.
Hi, thank you, Rhiannon, for having me on. I'm really happy to be here. And yeah, my name is Sanhre. I'm the host of the Order of Chaos podcast, and I run the Order of Chaos Mystery School.
Yes, and that's something I am definitely wanting to invest in later on down the line here. I have been eyeing your classes for a while, and it's on my to-do list. So I'm very excited.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's geared towards beginners, we're teaching Tarot 101, Astrology 101, like all the basics of everything. So, but there's something there for everybody. We're this month for October, I'm having a guest teacher who's going to do a whole course on hex work. And
Cool.
We'll have featured guest teachers every month. So cool thing is that there's always something new.
Exactly. So I'm definitely like an eye that hex work, because that's something that you don't see hosted anywhere. And that's actually another reason why I started my Patreon, is so that I can start like posting things on a little bit more where you don't want the general public to know, but like someone who's serious would like to know how to do things properly. So I'm very excited to look into that. So today go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I don't think the general public watches my show or is even aware of it, so I don't feel worried about that. Like, I feel like you'd have to try really hard to find me if you weren't looking for it. So, I mean, that's a good point, but I don't know. I think I'll be all right.
It's true. I mean, like the other day I was just talking to Ivy, and I was like, dude, I really wanted to post a War Water video. And I'm so glad you posted it, because like I allowed someone to like manipulate my mindset a little bit on that, like with their opinions. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I don't care what like the general public sees on it and they think that I'm crazy and trying to ensue wars or something. So it's not exactly how it works. It's not the purpose of it, really. So, but yeah, it's just, I think it was my own insecurities getting in my own way. Yeah.
Right. And that's one of the things you have to get past to be a practitioner, not to be any kind of practitioner, but to advance in occultism. You have to have an I don't give a fuck attitude. You really do.
Yep.
Right. Because everyone's out there judging us so hard, and they have no information. They have no idea what they're talking about. It's all a bunch of mumbo jumbo. I've got so many comments on my posts and everything from, fundamentalists, Christians who are, you're going to hell and all this. Okay, crazy.
This blah blah blah. Yeah.
Yeah, blah blah blah. And for practitioners of magic, if you don't know how to hex, I'm not saying you should go out there and hexing people. You should know how to do it, though.
Yeah.
You should know what you're doing, right? You should know how hexes work. You should have a thorough understanding of how hexes work. What if you've been hexed? Do you not understand the mechanics of it? Right? Like, it's knowledge is power.
Exactly. And that's what I always say. And that's why I think it's so important to not always stay on like the lighter side of things, and maybe like dive down into a little bit more of the darker side of things, or maybe like the defensive kind of things, because like how else are you going to help yourself if you end up in a situation, which especially with people like yourself and I who are online, even unintentionally, people are sending stuff our way because we're just in the public eye of any small amount. And I think it's just important to be able to like defend yourself in that way.
Yeah, definitely. Banishment and protection magic is incredibly important, because there are crazies out there, and there are crazies out there who know just enough metaphysics to be dangerous.
Yes, exactly. With all that said, definitely go check out Sanhre's Magic Mystery School. It's so valuable, and check out what he has to offer on there. And today's episode, we were wanting to dive into the paranormal, because we're getting into the spookier, crazier, more energetic months, which I love so very much. I feel a lot more energized this time of year. And I just wanted to share a little bit of our experiences with the paranormal. I know Sanhre has had a lot of experiences experiences himself. And for myself, I'm hoping to maybe get some clarity on some things that I've experienced if he is also. So with that said, I would want to start my questions with, what is the scariest thing that you've ever experienced in the paranormal?
Oh yeah, that's super easy. Okay. I was living in San Francisco in one of those old, full house style tall houses on 41st Avenue. And I
Yeah.
remember the first day that I moved in there, there is my roommate there, and there were several people living in this house, right? There was like 6 bedrooms or something, and they were all rented out. And the guy who was living in the upstairs where I was going to be living, and he's a big dude my size, said, "Oh man, I'm so glad you're here. I can't be alone upstairs anymore." And
Wow.
I said, "Why?" I don't really remember his response, but we got into talking about how that house was clearly haunted and everybody knew it and everybody's freaked out by it, but there was nothing really super harmful going on, not yet anyway.
Mhm.
So fast forward 6 months and there is progressively more and more spooky stuff happening. I started to realize that whatever it was that was occupying that upstairs was living in my bedroom,
Ew.
and it became increasingly malevolent feeling.
Mhm.
And I witnessed my partner at the time undergo a full-on possession, which caused
Wow.
me to have a full-on panic attack. And like, it was, that was the scariest thing I ever saw. And then about a week after that, we had finally like tried to settle down from it, and we were looking into our options as to, like, how the hell to get out of this house because we don't want to be there.
Mhm.
And I got home from work one day, and we had an appointment of some kind. I went upstairs and we were talking. Um, and then she's like, "Okay, let's go." And I said, "Okay, I'll be right there." And she walks downstairs. And then she calls me from her cell phone a minute later and said, "Hey, where did you go?" I said, "I'm still upstairs. I'm just grabbing my things." And she said, "What do you mean? You were just right next to me." I said, "No, I wasn't. I'm upstairs." And she said, "No, you just walked downstairs with me." And I said, "No, I didn't. I'm upstairs."
Oh,
And then she screamed. And then I ran down the stairs, and we decided that day to move out of that house, even though we didn't know where we were going. We just packed up and left.
that's horrifying. That's like something from a movie almost. So then you've had that firsthand experience with a possession. Then, um, I'm not sure how like in experienced you are with that type of thing, but I know for myself, when I was living back in my family home, my ex had moved out of my basement bedroom. We were living there for a while, and I felt like some kind of energy was starting to pour into the bedroom. And I've
Mm-hmm.
always hated the basement, and like it's like that typical thing, you're scared of the basement, but it was different. I always felt like something was intelligent there. And there was this one night I was sleeping, and I was trying to wake up, and I would hear this voice because I was hearing something, but it wasn't me. It was a different voice. And then I realized I was the one talking. It was me, like it was my words. And it
Mm-hmm.
was like I was in the midst of like a sleep paralysis episode. And that's why I never take off my bracelets now, because without them, I always have it. And I was like, okay, what the hell is this? And so I started like reciting the Lord's Prayer from what I could remember of it from going to like Sunday school. And eventually it kind of like tapered off and turned back into me. And then I gained control of myself again, and I bolted upstairs. I think I was from the basement bedroom to upstairs within like almost 4 seconds. And I was up all night for the next 3 nights because I wouldn't go back to sleep. Um, so yeah, I always wondered what the hell that was, or if it was something like I thought it might have been, like a possession, but it sounds familiar.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say exactly, but I would assume some sort of partial or full possession. I mean, I think with a full on possession, you would not be able to snap out of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So kind of a partial possession, and that kind of thing can happen pretty easily if you're, number one, if you're a practitioner of magic, if you're a person who meditates at all, if you're a person who experiments with consciousness at all, you kind of turn that light on, and it's like an open sign. In the astral, you become much more visible, and you become much more visible to all kinds of entities, including astral parasites and malevolent spirits and tricksters and all of those things, right? So it's very important to have your wards and banishment and protection magic in place at all times if you are a practitioner of magic, period, right? Like all times, not when you think you might need it, because by then it's possibly too late. But I would say something from the astral, most likely, and this happened while you were sleeping, is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so something made its way from your dreams to your waking mind. It was trying to come through.
It's so scary. And like in the same room, I had this large mirror with like ornate metal on the side, and I had been moving around my stuff, and I had to move my bed back to where I had originally had it because I kept having this horrible like experience in this area, and I think it was just the energetics of the space. But while I had it in this new area, I probably shouldn't have, but I put the mirror between the wall and the bed uncovered, and I heard this sound of like a crack of glass. Like the glass was fine, but it was this energetic sound in the
But
middle
you
of my
heard the
sleep.
sound. Oh,
Yeah, I was literally sleeping right next to a portal
yeah.
that was unlocked because at this time I was experimenting more with law of attraction and like really starting to learn like any type of metaphysics. So I had no protections, and um yeah, and that's when like my sleep paralysis had to like really accelerated, and I had to like start learning about like some type of like on body protections and stuff like that. And that's kind of like what really like pushed me into like the metaphysics of everything, is learning how to protect myself. um and it kind of accelerated everything from there.
Do you put any type of protection on the mirrors in your home?
Now I do. I make this solution. I have uh, I have lavender, lilac, and vinegar and lemon, and I spray the mirrors with that to clean. And then I do a sigil on the front and the back of it because I'm just
Yeah,
scared of it wiping
that's
off.
what I would do, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I have to
Yeah, I
lock them
put
now.
yeah. I don't keep mirrors in my home like that aren't in a washroom and with the door closed, right? That's not such a big deal. Any like this, I have a black scrying mirror here, but it's got powerful protection magic on the backside of it that keeps anything out that isn't welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Mirrors are portals. I know that a lot of people are like, that sounds hokey, and it does sound hokey, but that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't make it untrue. Mirrors are portals.
Well, exactly. Like in our last house before we moved here last month, we had those sliding doors that were glass. And they were actually the only way we had the room situated is you had to have the bed facing the mirrors because there was no way else to put it. And there was like four mirrors there. Plus, we had like a side table, like waterfall thing with a mirror on it. And then I realized once I put it in there, I was like, oh my God, I have mirrors facing each other and then they're facing me all night long.
Oh my.
No. So then I had to take all the mirrors off and like we tossed them in the garbage. So we had no doors in our closet. But it felt like people were watching me all the time.
Yeah. And so, mirror magic is really fascinating. It's not like they're not all portals to bad places. They're portals to the most, and this is just, listen, I'm telling you my beliefs based on my experiences. I'm not trying to tell anybody else this is objective truth or what to believe. I never do that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I believe, what I've experienced, is that mirrors are portals to the closest adjacent timelines to our own, where things are almost identical, but ever so slightly different.
Mm.
Now, when you put two mirrors side facing each other like that, and you create the infinity effect, now you're seeing many, many, many more timelines out. And as you get further out, the differences increase.
Okay, yeah, that makes
And
sense.
you've created this window through which all of them can look at you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So needless to say, it did improve after we got rid of that stuff. Actually, within that house, I had so much weird stuff. There was several energies and spirits in that home. I had to get a demonologist friend to help me with one of his um cohorts, I guess, is one of his energies that he had worked with, and I had to leave an offering for it. Um to energetically take things out of the house because there was no way for him to come here. It's in the States, but it did improve. But we had things like what was it? They were taunting you. So like the sound of like clothes in your hand dropping on the floor would come closer and closer and closer to you. It would taunt and torment my boyfriend. I had to come over in the middle of the night before I'd lived there before because it was just taunting him, or he would do it on the stairs. Or it would stand over you and you could feel an energy above and over you, and then you turn around, it's
That
no one. Yeah.
that happened in that same San Francisco house, and it would get closer all the time.
Yeah.
So there was a lot more to that story, and there's many more things that happened in that house, but I didn't want to take up too much time. But yeah, I've
That's good.
been there. It's not fun.
No, it's not. And then you know what, I started thinking about it too because my mom had passed last year, and I've always had like the knowing, and I've always had like premonition dreams and stuff like that, and but I've never been able to hear anything and see anything. But clear as day, it was my mom talking to me, and I never had any bad thoughts, but it also like made me a little doubtful, just thinking, you know, we had something mimicking our voices in that house before she even passed. So I'm like, was it truly her? And now I'm like kind of like digging in, trying to see if I can connect to her to see if it was, because now I'm like,
Yeah,
was it?
that's what I would do. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I would be always keep yourself open to the best possible answer to anything. I think that's important, right? But you don't want to deceive yourself either. You have to just be open, try not to have too much doubt. But yeah, I would definitely try to connect to her in a space that you know is clean and safe and energetically clean. And then you know, see if you can just ask, was that you?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna definitely try that because this space is completely new. It's like a 2016 build. I don't really feel any energy yet here. Generally, I could feel it within a few weeks. There'll be something. So it's a fairly
Yeah.
new space, but I'm gonna like put up as many things I can because I just don't want that to happen again. The whole energy in that area was horrible, and like my dog, we had stairs, so it was weird. You come into the kitchen from the front door, and then you're in the living room. But there's stairs to go downstairs and stairs to go upstairs. And it kind of felt like you're always in an in-between space. And it always felt like something was like staring in on you. And he would never go past the stairs alone. And you'd have to go get his water. And he'd be fine. Sometimes he'd forget about it and go, but then he'd react as if something like touched him. And like it just made me so uncomfortable. I almost felt like I was being kind of like hunted in a sense in that spot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't
You know, and
know.
that's what I was saying. When you open yourself up to those things, you put that sort of open sign on, and then it almost is like you're being hunted, and that's why you have to have your astral protection up at all times.
Exactly. That's why I'm so like adamant about it now. Especially because I feel like my boyfriend and I are very energetically like we're lightning rods. He had experiences where in his old house, I forget the name of the builder, but this place is like pretty infamously haunted. I'll have to put it up on the screen when I ask him after. But he was living in one of his old builds, and he's had growls at him, scratches and tauntings and all kinds of stuff, to the point where he had to like seek outside help for certain things because people thought he was just maybe ill, which he's not. And I was just almost scared that maybe it had attached to him. Like I know he had an amulet that an ex-partner had given him who was also a practitioner. I'm not sure how experienced they were, but this item kept coming back no matter how many times we tried to get rid of it. I literally had to wrap it in black salts and protective herbs and bind it and mail it to my friend Corey in the States. And he put it in one of his protective boxes because it was just coming back all the time. But every time it came back, something bad was happening. It wasn't really protecting anything. It was weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
Have you ever experienced anything like that where it's like just an item keeps returning, even though you're physically like throwing it out?
No, but I've heard this so many times. I've heard this from multiple people on multiple occasions about this happening, and these people I trust. I've never experienced that with a physical item.
Mhm.
I would be freaked out if I did. I mean, I'm let's see, I hear things. I will
Mhm.
hear spirits. I don't see them, but I will certainly hear them. And then you have your third sight.
Mhm.
I can see them the same way I can see auras, right? It's not with your eyes. You see them energetically. I can see these things and I
Mhm.
hear them, but like physical apports like that, mm, no. I mean, I've had only in positive ways, I would say. If
Oh,
I've asked my guides for a sign, then I will get it. But no, I've been very fortunate not to have any more severe hauntings than what I described in San Francisco.
oh, good. What's another one that comes to mind that maybe like spurs like a positive memory for you, if any?
Oh, gosh, I had one last night, but I'm not supposed to talk about it.
Oh, shoot.
I know, right? Because I went to go tell somebody about it like the next day, and immediately I felt like, no, don't do that. And so I put my phone down. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I won't say anything,
Yeah,
but I
secret.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay, well,
That
that's
sucks because
okay.
I'd like to. I know, right?
Well,
Um,
I do have one of my own then, if I need to
okay.
share, if you're not able to. So when my mother had passed last year, we were up in my partner's son's room, and like I was like feeling a lot of random things, a lot of things that month I had never experienced, like the energy of the air moving, like literally moving all around you, like it couldn't possibly. But that night I literally saw an orb as if it was in the movie of Peter Pan and it was Tinkerbell. And I've never seen anything like that before. And it was like a ball of light, like like a flashlight would have been, just moving around the entire room. And I don't know, I always just assumed it was my mom or a spirit guide or something, but I've never seen anything like that before. It's the first time I've ever seen anything spiritually that kind of like wrapped around my boyfriend and I and then like shot out underneath his bed and was gone.
I thought of one I can definitely share.
Yeah.
And that's very interesting. And actually I've had that same experience, but so I had that experience the night a friend passed away.
Mm.
And she passed away as a devout atheist. Um, and then that night, of course, I mean, just because she's an atheist, I'm still going to pray for her. I'm still going to ask my guides to help her across because it's probably harder when you pass as a like devout atheist. You're probably very confused.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and so I was in that state. I was meditating and just asking my guides to please guide her along the way. And then I had a very, very similar experience with the orb of light.
Oh, that's crazy. Okay, so then I wasn't going insane. Someone else has experienced
No,
that.
I mean, another one that happens all the time. So I have here. So I have several tarot decks, like most tarot readers do. I don't have as many. I don't have hundreds. Some people go nuts, right?
Mhm.
If I don't like the energy of a deck, I give it away.
Right.
But this one, the alchemical tarot. So whenever I get a new deck, frequently, not every time, but often, it will form its own spirit attachment, and that's what I use to communicate with particular spirits. So this one I use to communicate with my dad, and it's
Oh.
you know it was very clear right from the beginning that that's what it was for.
Mhm.
um and another thing that's interesting about my father, we're from Santa Cruz, California, and that's one of the places where the monarchs stop and like they form they rest there essentially. I don't quite remember, but I remember being a little kid and going to the beach, and at this one spot in Santa Cruz, you walk down this wooden trail to this like observatory type area, and there's millions of monarch butterflies there. It's like their resting place, right? They're just
Mhm.
chilling at a certain time every year. Well, my father passed away when I was 12, and ever since then, and I did not understand why this was happening until I was well into my late 20s.
Mhm.
But anytime I just really, really, really miss him or really feel like I wish he were here, or often when something really good is happening in my life, there will be a single monarch butterfly that just appears and is just follows us around for a while.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that so much. I have something similar with my mom. I think it was an orange butterfly. Maybe it was monarch, I don't know. But we were at her gravesite doing her service, and there was just butterflies everywhere. When I was speaking, I was told this. I didn't really notice too much until it landed on me, but they were floating around my brother and I, and it landed on my right side. And I did notice that because I felt it. Um, and like afterwards, it actually, the same one, at least it looked like it, ended up like hovering around our car and then went into the car and sat on the driver's side window, and kind of just like, it just felt like thanks for coming kind of thing. And
Yeah.
like, I recognize you kind of thing. It was really cool. And then that week, I'll have to insert a picture or something later, but I found a little angel candle at my place of work. I was like, oh shoot, because I was gonna buy them. This lady was selling them. And I was gonna buy this little figure candle because my mom loved angels, like she collected them. And they were all gone. And then I found one. It literally I kicked it with my foot in the parking lot. And then later that day, I found a little silver glitter butterfly inside my home. We don't have those glitters in our home. My like stepson doesn't like do those kind of crafts, and he hadn't been there for a couple of weeks, so I don't know where it would have been, but it was in our kitchen and it just kind of was there. So it was just a weird correlation. So I kind of just put
Yeah.
it all together, and I was like, I feel like they're gifts.
They are. And like I firmly believe that reality is a kind of illusion.
Mm-hmm.
And it is when once you really understand the malleability of that illusion, nothing's shocking anymore. Right.
Yeah.
Everything, you see something for what it really is, and you don't think, how is that possible? Well, it's an illusion. It's
Yeah.
all an illusion. Anything's possible. And the more you open your mind to the realization that this is all an illusion, the less things surprise you,
Yeah,
and the more they make sense.
exactly. I agree. What I was wondering is, for yourself, what do you do this time of year for protections? Because I know energies are going to be a lot more frequent. They're able to connect a lot easier. And for myself, I know I definitely feel it. So is there anything that you tend to do that you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very, very open about my practice, by the way. There's very little that I keep hidden.
Mm.
This is also because and this all ties in, I promise. One of the things I think a lot of practitioners struggle with that I don't, and for whatever reason, is having a magical mindset. Um, and this to me is a type of disciplined and controlled arrogance in a certain sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So I am firmly of the belief that try it. Fuck with me. I dare you. Try
Yeah.
it. It's not, nothing's gonna happen to me. Um, and you have to have that mindset though, right? You don't want to provoke anybody, but you have to maintain the mindset of I am impenetrable. That's part of doing the magic, right?
Mhm.
So then the next thing I would say is practice visualizing your aura to start. And once you have that practice down, because your aura is a real thing, it's a real electromagnetic energy field. This
Mhm.
is it's not woo woo in any sense. This is very real. It's measurable. All creatures have them. So practice visualizing it, and once you feel like you can feel it, practice like fortifying it. Now it spins, right? It spins like this. And what I would do, and I've been doing this for so many years that I do this all the time subconsciously. I probably do it 1,000 times a day. I never think about it. But until then, until you get to that point, you want to practice this. Make it spin faster and imagine it as giving off a bright white light. Okay.
Okay.
It is very difficult for anything to penetrate that. But there are powerful things out there, right? So if you're going to do anything like I'm doing with this black mirror, I'll show you. So black mirrors are dangerous.
Mhm.
They're powerful tools, and I use this as a portal to the spirit realm. It's very important to my practice, but I'm not an idiot, and I'm aware that this is a dangerous tool, right? It's like owning a gun.
Yep.
So on the back side of this mirror, you can see I have a runic protection spell. as
Cool.
well as salt. And I've done a number of workings and incantations over this to energize it with that protective energy. And I'll do that with all kinds of things. There are runes all over my house in places you'd never think to look. Um, I will draw them at any point if I feel that I need their energy. If I feel that I need to, so I love runes for protection magic and for projectile magic because they're very effective for both of those things, right? So I do recommend using the runes if you're like me and you're an eclectic chaos magician and you don't really like. I don't ascribe to any particular path. I do what works, and runes work, so I use runes. I could also use a different kind of sigil, or there's all kinds of things you can do. But that, to me, again, I'm always going for best results. Right.
I
So
like that.
protective runes and then protecting my own energy field. Those are the two primary ways. Another way, this is a good one. If you want to protect yourself from cops, let's say you're not the best driver, or you haven't gotten your lead foot under control yet. And this back when I was like, a single dad on the teeter on the edge of being completely broke, things would happen like my registration's past due and I don't have fucking $500 to go fix it. So anytime you get in your car, it would say, "I do not consent to interact with any police officers today." And then, so this is something that I do first of all, the name I stole from Star Wars. I fucking love Star Wars, but I'm not talking about Star Wars. Okay. But I do a thing I call a thought bomb. And it's when you take an intention and you push it into that same energetic field that I was talking about, and then push it out as far and wide as you can, as powerfully as you can. This takes practice. The better you get at it, the more effective it works. But ever since I started doing that, I have never been pulled over.
That's so good. I'm gonna have to try that. I like that. That's really cool. I never thought about using like my energetic field to do that outside of like a ritual, but like every day at any point in time you can do it.
Everything's a ritual.
Exactly. Like my baking is a ritual. Like why not do it just
Literally
now?
getting out
Because
of
I've
bed
thought
is a
of it.
ritual.
Yeah.
Everything's a ritual if you think about it that way. Everything is magical. The universe is like literally made out of magic. There's nothing else holding all this together. So
Yeah.
you're just interacting with what is real.
Yeah. Exactly.
Instead of the illusion.
Yes. What is real to you? Because it depends. Yeah. That's cool.
Exactly.
Okay. I like that. Because like always feel like because of the amount of energy I've had in my home that I have to do like a list of 1,000 things to just really fortify it. But maybe I should just start small and go from there. I just feel like I've always had something in my space, but I've never had control of like pushing it away. So I'm just scared of things coming in without me asking it to,
But okay, and I don't mean to be condescending, and I don't mean to be like telling you what's up or anything like that, but you can't be afraid. The fear invites it in. And this is why I was saying you have to walk around. If you're going to be an occultist, a magician of any kind, you must walk around with a type of disciplined, controlled arrogance. I am untouchable. Fuck you. I don't care what you think about anything. You can't harm me. You have to maintain this mindset. And it's not like I'm telling you, you have to, like you're doing it wrong. I'm saying like you have to, or you open yourself up to a lot of negativity. It's a necessity.
Yeah. You're right. You're 1,000% right. It's a mindset thing I had to start working on. And I think I got to the point where I was like, okay, like I'm brave enough to start doing it, but now I'm naive enough to continue practicing without continuing to do things that I know I should. Changing my thought patterns. Like I used to do that when I was very depressed, where I was able to cure those things by correcting a thought that I had with a counterintuitive thought. And, like I thought, oh, now that's gone. I don't have to do that anymore, but it's not true. If I feel like there's something
all day, every day.
Yeah.
Right. And
exactly.
that's what you're doing is interesting because you're applying the Hermetic principles of mentalism, correspondence, and polarity, right? All three together.
Yeah.
And replacing a thought with the exact opposite, positive thought, right? And then you change the way that your brain works. Now just do that with everything in your life that you don't want. If there's something in your life that you
Yeah.
don't want that is persisting and you don't like it, replace it and
Yeah.
practice this. And then as you replace it in your interior world, the law of correspondence, it will change in your exterior world.
Yeah. And I've seen that 1,000 times. So it's definitely something I just have to revisit. I think it's a just it's a habit that I have to instill again. I'll do things for a certain amount of time and then I'm like, oh, I don't have to do it anymore for a while, or I forget about it. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
it's a human thing, I think.
Oh, it is totally. And also often, like when you're going through a really bad time, these past few retrogrades, I went through a really
Yeah.
hard time and I didn't do any magic the entire time because I was too involved in what was happening in the
Yeah.
physical realm.
Hmm.
I
Yes.
completely forgot.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. I think this was the first year I actually did something on a Lionsgate portal, and I'm
It's
so
my birthday.
thankful. Uh, oh, really? Oh, well,
Yep.
happy belated. That's awesome.
Thank you.
But yeah, I think I've seen like the most amount of like change from that. I did our friend Ivy's liquid luck.
Mm.
And I actually had a friend, well, I guess he was a manager at the time, but he brought back these little clay things from Egypt, and they were little pyramids and a
Mhm.
sphinx. And I was like, you didn't even know about this, but it was perfect timing. So I had to tell you the synchronicity of it all. And I used that around it. And I feel like literally, like as the candles were burning down, I had the person that I had thought of join our Discord group. And then I was able to collab with them.
That's
So
very cool.
it was really
It's very, very cool. It's
neat.
very similar to the experience I had last night that I can't talk about.
Ah, damn it.
I want to talk about it. I do. I want to talk about it. I've been instructed not to. and
Yeah,
it's
that's
reasonable
okay.
because it's okay. I'm just gonna stop. I'm just gonna stop.
Just not gonna do it. Maybe one day at some point, but if not, it's all good. But yeah, okay. So protection is great. For someone who's looking to get into spirit work, what would your advice be as a practitioner who's worked so many years in these fields?
Okay, now forgive me for being salesy here. Okay, my advice would be
Oh,
to join the school.
yes,
That
join the
would be my
school.
advice. Because so the tarot course is starting today, and what I'm doing with my tarot course is I'm putting a real emphasis on spirit communication because I feel like there's so many tarot courses out there that are just like, here's what the cards mean, done.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's like that's the least important thing to
Hmm.
reading tarot. It's like you could just have the book, you could just look it up. What's important is having an energetic connection to the cards and allowing
Hmm.
the cards to have an energetic connection to whatever it is you're trying to contact. And that's something to get into all this. I before COVID, I didn't have this podcast. I didn't do my show. I didn't do online anything. I was an in-person tarot reader. I did festivals. I did all the events, and I had office hours at a bookstore. It was so great. I miss it so much. But then COVID, right? And then so that went away, and so I started all this. But what I learned, and I never meant to do this. Okay, I would constantly have people sit down at my booth and say, I had a loved one pass away. Can you talk to them? And I would, in the beginning, I would say, I'll try. And if it doesn't work, then this is free, right? Because I don't know if I can do that. Yes, I can do that. Apparently, I'm very good at it.
Yeah.
So it would happen all the time, and I can always tell the difference between a tarot reading where I'm talking to spirit,
Hmm.
like spirit, let's say further layers away from us than ancestors, which are very close. But if I was doing a reading for a deceased loved one, rather than just knowing when to stop shuffling or to cut the cards, I would get a tap on the shoulder or something would poke me. It would always be a physical sensation.
Oh, neat.
So that right there, to me, that's the difference. So my advice is, if you don't want to join my school or you can't afford to or anything like that, here's my free advice. Look for the difference in whatever methodology you're using to communicate. Look for that sign because the recently deceased are very close to us.
Hmm.
They're one layer of reality away, right? And so it's easy for them to have physical effects. And so that's what I would look out for.
Okay, awesome. I'm gonna have to look into that tarot class because every class that I've ever taken is exactly that, is just looking into the reading of the cards. And I found that so extremely difficult. Like you can see a card and kind of like interpret what it's
Well, and
meaning.
every deck you'll ever buy comes with a book that explains the cards.
Yeah. And like
You
even
know,
that, like I'll get into layers like sentences worth of dialogue and I just get confused and I feel like the message gets lost because I'm like, okay, well I know what that means, but like what does that mean for myself? I don't feel like that relates at all. So like I know like my boyfriend's cousin got me this tarot deck. It's I can't remember what it's called. I'll put a picture of it up here. But it's like different scenes from different horror movies and like all that stuff from the 80s and 90s. And I was able to read that so much easier because I'm interpreting from what I know from the movies, from what my experiences were, and I don't get like stopped by the images that I've seen for so long. And I was actually able to channel a little bit from it, and I just felt like that like the door wasn't shut in my face, and I wasn't like distracted by all this stuff that I'm supposed to
yeah,
like measure into.
yeah. So tarot is a tool that like anybody can pick up a deck today, and you're a tarot reader. You have to practice your intuition. You have to practice discerning the feelings that are happening through you while you're doing tarot, right? If you're thinking, you're not going to get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, it was weird because like I had just met some of these family members on my boyfriend's side, and I'm like, here, I'm gonna pull out this deck I got for Christmas. They don't, they're very conservative, but they enjoyed it because it was like one of those pop culture thingies, and it's like, oh, I
Yeah.
could be a little bit more myself here at Brownies or whatever. Like, what's the list that you've encountered so far?
Ancestors, just recently deceased relatives. The spirits of the Goetia have had a presence in my life for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
The Norse gods, the Egyptian gods, a couple of Greek gods. And so the way that I would describe all this is that there are layers of reality and different, and a lot of people like to throw around the word dimensions, but I'm not going to number them. Okay, like I'm just going to say there are layers. I don't know how many layers there are, but there are layers. It's like an onion. It's like an ogre. There are layers. The closest layer to us is our recently deceased loved ones, maybe possibly in the same space, or definitely like another very close layer. We have goetic spirits and earth spirits. Further layers out, we have the mythological gods and archetypes of consciousness. And then further layers out to that, there are who knows,
It's
unseen
endless.
things. Okay.
Yeah.
I've had direct contact with recently deceased loved ones, with the goetic spirits, with a number of deities, and with just straight up ghosts
Straight
and
up.
trickster spirits. Yeah, and tricksters tend to be, I think, earth spirits. I don't know, right? And that's one of the things that I want to say. I can't stand it when people are like, "Oh yeah, this is exactly what it is." I'm like, you don't know shit, man.
Yeah.
We know what we think we know. So like, I'm not an expert. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
here to tell anyone what objective truth is. I'm telling you what I think it is based on my experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I had an experience. Here's a recent one for you. This is 2 years ago, and I've told this story before, but this is why I will never touch a Ouija board ever again.
Oh, yeah, please do.
Is that spirit, the people, there's videos about this all over the internet called Zozo. That's very real. Don't fuck with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So playing Ouija board with a friend. She finally got me to agree after like saying I don't want to over and over and over again, whatever, fine. And then immediately ZO, and I felt that thing invade my body.
Ew.
And I ran the fuck out of the house and just immediately started banishment and protection. Had to go chase the thing out of my house and then go through all my wards again, and it was deeply unpleasant. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't want to go through that ever again. I think that Ouija boards are essentially portals to trickster spirits. That's like all they are, in my opinion. And I know some people disagree, and that's fine. Disagree. That's my opinion. Fuck those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, F those things. Well, my boyfriend had a similar experience with some friends. They were playing with a Ouija board. He was just kind of like standing by watching, but you're
Mhm.
there. And something took over their friend and they had like this horrible experience with it. I can't go into really detail with it, but he was like sworn off them since then. And I know I've had people like suggest them for like communication, like with house spirits and stuff like that. But like honestly, no, I'm just gonna talk to them and be like, yo, you're not following my rules, just leave. Like
Yeah.
I don't feel like I want something to touch me to be able to communicate with me, you know?
It's unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like that tarot cards are just far more like if Ouija boards are a portal to trickster spirits, your tarot cards are a portal to the higher realms,
Hmm. Yeah,
not the
I definitely
lower.
agree with that. Yeah, I've definitely never had like a negative experience with the tarot, in terms of like spirit activity, that's for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I've had
Um, you've had
one
one.
actually, one. So my business partner, so I used to do, and I still do, a lot of tarot for my friend Marissa, who owns Dragon Witch Shop,
Mhm.
and her and I were working together for a client that had been cursed, been hexed, and it didn't just think they'd been hexed. Like this lady had clearly actually been hexed,
Mhm.
and I was doing a reading on it, and whatever entity or egregor, I think is what it was, that had been sent to torment this woman came right through my tarot deck and like into my space, and it was
Oh,
terrifying. And I apologized to it, and I said, I have no problem with you. I'm just reading tarot here.
yeah.
I'm not your enemy. I respect you. Please leave. Please go back to where you came. I am not your enemy. And then I shut that shit down immediately.
Oh, that's horrific. I never even thought that that's a thing that could happen, but yes, for sure. Huh. I know for myself, I've encountered what I believe to be fae. I know I have a video from like a long time ago with horrible audio quality, so please don't judge me on it. It's awful. I might have to refilm it, but I know I had encountered what I think is like a fae queen. Um, I just saw her with my own eyes, and that was the only other thing I saw physically other than that like little orb spirit. Was this little fae queen outside of my great grandmother's window in like BC, and that was the coolest thing I've ever like experienced outside of that, because I've always been obsessed with them. Even when I was like 12, I was carrying around printed off documents from like the internet with compiled my own little grimoire with them and bringing them to high school and studying it constantly. So I was like, they do exist. They're real.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure they do. I've never encountered the Fae, but I have no disbelief in them whatsoever.
Yeah. I'm definitely like I feel really close to them in my sense because I do have like the Irish Scottish lineage, and it's just something that I've always been like really called to. Um, but I don't find them like scary like people say. Like in my experience, they are gods. At least a small percentage of them are, and I feel like that was just like a thing that was messed around with a little bit to make people not believe in them anymore. But yeah, I found that really magical, and since then I've been like looking into portals and like different like in between spaces because they're said to live there.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that in between space, that's what I mean. Like it's a very close layer.
Hmm.
It's a very, very close layer to our reality.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm hoping to do like a portals and like energy portal kind of video very soon. So I'm looking into that a little bit because I find them fascinating and I see them everywhere I go. It's not something I can like ignore, but I
Mm-hmm.
always feel really pretty called to them. So I think that'd be a fun video to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And that's a
So
that's a very interesting experience to be having on a regular basis.
yeah, it's kind of weird. It's if I were to be seeing something, I would explain it as if it was like a mind's eye thing, but
Yeah.
I definitely like I'll catch myself like doing a second glance at something and I'd be like, oh, that's a spot I can go visit. And
Mhm.
it's fun. It's cool, but like also you have to be like careful too, because you don't want to be
Yes, because you don't
intrusive
know
on
where the
things.
portal goes.
Yes.
There's lots of different. There's many different realms and
Yeah.
portals to all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I find myself when I'm on my hikes and stuff like that, we're going up trails and stuff like that. I'll have like family wanting to walk through trees, and I'm like, let's not do that tree. This one's fine.
Yeah.
Just not that one because it just doesn't feel right. But yeah, so when it comes to paranormal investigating, I know it's something I'm very interested in, and I've looked in different areas for different groups for myself to join. And I know you're interested in that, in investigations and stuff like that. So I would just like to talk on the subject of paranormal investigators and what you think about them. Do you feel like they're accurate? Do you feel like a lot of them are full of bullshit? What's your take on that?
I think 99.99999% of them are completely full of shit. Now that's not to say that they aren't having experiences that are paranormal in nature in some of their investigations, but they themselves are full of shit. You cannot be a paranormal investigator if you don't understand the occult. They are the same thing. What do you mean you're an investigator and you don't understand mediumship? You don't understand magic? You're not an occultist? Okay, so what are you, Egon? Like, not to be a dick here, but like all those gadgets and stuff, that's cute. Like it's, but it's, you know, it's meant, it is meant, those are props. Those are props meant for visual effects, which is what everybody wants. Okay. And this is why paranormal investigators on television in particular are completely full of shit, because you're trying to catch something on film that cannot be caught on film.
Yeah.
And all you're doing by doing that is pushing people in the other direction, right? And making them feel like you're full of shit. It's great entertainment. Don't get me wrong, it's entertainment. And sometimes I'm sure they're having real experiences, but their methodology of going about it, to me, I'm always like, these are just people running around with cameras going, what was that? What was that? You know, and it's gosh, you know, without a thorough knowledge of the occult, how are you going to do paranormal investigations, right? So
yeah,
I would like to do paranormal investigations myself. It's something I've really toyed with, like the idea of even doing a second channel, but it would not be that same shit. It would be something very different that might not translate onto the camera all that well, to be honest. And you know, that's the thing. You're trying to, all these channels out there are trying to catch something on film again that isn't going to get itself caught on film.
Yeah.
It's going to be extremely rare that you get that kind of evidence. And so sure, that's, you can make endless content because you're always waiting for that evidence that's never coming.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be something you get with your camera. It's going to be something you feel. It's going to be something that you experience, that maybe you see, like we were talking about with your mind's eye, but isn't going to get itself caught on film. It doesn't interact with light. You know, one explanation for what spirit is dark matter life forms. Okay, so dark matter can't be caught on film. And if dark matter is what is just a scientific name for a spirit, you're not going to get it on film. You know, and those some of those gadgets, like, don't get me wrong, they're very cool. Okay, like, you got to understand that I was obsessed with Ghostbusters when I was a kid, and I love it, and that's what I wanted. You know, I've always wanted to move in that realm, but this is why I'm an occultist, because I always want to move in the direction of what's real and not what looks cool.
Yeah.
So I would say that, like, the vast majority of paranormal investigation channels are just out there trying to look cool.
Yeah, I feel that. I definitely like, I'm starting to lean towards the investigators that have some type of spiritualism in their makeup. Like, I know like Haley Reese is an investigator, and yeah, she's maybe more on the new agey kind of side of things, but she understands those types of things. She has relationships with mediums. She has readings, like that kind of thing. So I'll watch stuff like that, but there's other channels that I just kind of have to turn off sometimes, because I'm like, all you're doing, you finally got like a reaction and you're having physical speech right now that is intelligent, and they're screaming and running away. Like, why? It's because you want to put like a weird clip in it, like something chased me out of a building. But like, no, you're supposed to be communicating with them. No.
No, it's all just going for that effect, right? Getting that shot for the thumbnail, blah blah blah. It's disingenuous, and I don't love it. It's entertaining though. Like, it's entertaining. It is. And sometimes I'll watch that shit just to be entertained. but it also to me is like it definitely makes me roll my eyes. Put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. I definitely think a channel is needed in that realm where they're focusing on the occult. And I feel like we've always been, as a community, a scapegoat, but this one is specifically because it's so very close to what we interact with on a daily basis, is we're being used as scapegoats all the time. I'm finding for paranormal investigators saying, oh, a witch practiced here. Oh,
Oh,
a cult
totally.
practiced here. And like, yeah, but like, are you sure that's what it was, or did you just spray paint that on the floor just so you could have it on your
Yeah.
video?
And even because they're always so hokey, right?
Yeah,
It's so
yeah.
hokey and it doesn't look like real occultism because it's always the same inverted pentagram. It's not an
Mhm.
actual sigil that was created by a magical practitioner who knows how to create sigil. It's never a goetic sigil. It's always the same inverted pentagram. And it is
Yeah.
so fucking boring. And don't get me wrong, okay, pentagrams hold incredible magic power. That is a fact.
Mhm.
But practitioners don't use them over and over and over again stylistically the way you see on television.
No, no. I know, like, every time they're like, oh, like there's images or something here, and I'm like, I perk up because I want to like see if I can recognize anything or interpret something in a working, and I'm like, that's just like a copy paste thing that you got off
Yes,
Google.
exactly. Yeah, I would recognize a real magical sigil if I saw one, but you
Mhm.
never see that on those channels. Isn't that weird? Isn't that it's strange how it's always the same thing and it's always the thing that
Mhm.
you see in the movies?
Yeah.
You
Weird.
know,
It's
weird. Yeah.
it drives me crazy, and like I feel like a real occultist, as we know, we practice in our homes. We always
Mm-hmm.
have a space where we don't have to go into like abandoned buildings. Okay, we don't hang out
Mm-hmm.
there. It's not something that we want to do. We're normal people. We have a sacred space for ourselves, and that's where we
Yeah.
work.
And we're
Sometimes
not
I
going to
work
leave our
on
workings just out in the open for anybody
no,
to find, unclosed down, like
yeah.
with all your magics just laying around. Like no one's going to do that.
I don't want anyone touching our stuff. Like once it's like set
Yeah.
a certain way, we don't want someone interacting with it, messing with it. Like I work on my kitchen counter a lot of times, and that's about it. You know, like I'm not going
Mhm.
out like into any weird spaces to do that. Like
Yeah.
your investigators do that. You hang out in the weird empty spots looking for stuff.
Hmm.
We're at home watching you going like, what the heck are they doing? Like I don't know what they're looking for.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I would love to see a channel that was far more grounded and focused on the occult aspect of things and not
Hmm.
just out there for the shock value.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I'm really interested to see how this works out. I won't name it unless I don't like it, but maybe I'll do a review if I like it. But this person is going to be a guest on the what was it? The Conjuring House, I think
Mm.
it is. And she was a witch brought in for this location. And I'm just really excited to see, is it going to be very hokey and typical, or is it actually going to be demystifying a little bit and
Yeah.
actually using her as a tool to communicate? So I'm really interested to see what that is, because I feel like this time of year, especially, we're used as like some type of kitschy thing, and it'd be nice to actually see channels and TV shows actually utilize us as a value and really
Mhm.
a vessel to communicate information instead of this is our Halloween special. Check it out. It was so scary. I
Yeah.
almost died. So much, Sanhre, for joining me on the podcast. I really like gleaned a lot of value from your past experiences, and hopefully we'll be able to go on a few investigations very soon and start dispelling some of the mystical and the paranormal, and maybe debunk some things that are always blamed on us witches and mystics.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun,
Yeah.
and yeah, I'd love to do that. So let's get it together. Let's do it. I think it's necessary.
Yeah, I think so too. It's definitely needed for the community.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it'll be fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it.
Woohoo. I'm excited.
All right. Well, yeah,
Okay.
thank you for having me on, Rhiannon. It was awesome, and I appreciate you and all your work. Your podcast is awesome. So really
Thank
glad
you.
to be here.
Thank you. All right. You have an amazing day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Okay.